Alright, this is John Colo with OKRaw.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you, and today we're going to talk about something that can be controversial in the health food movement. It's salt. And is salt good? Is it bad? Is it right? Is it wrong? People always want to know, John, what's the answer? Well, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys my opinions on this topic based on my research, which are based on many journal published reviews. I've been living a healthy lifestyle now for the last 22 years, since it's 2017 now. Happy New Year's, everybody. And I've really had to dive deep into this because the main reason why I dive deep into different health topics is because my life is on the line. I almost lost my life when I was younger, so I really take my health seriously, and until you have maybe some life-changing event in your life where you're about to lose your life, you don't realize how precious your life is. So I want all you guys to, make the statement or the saying, health is your greatest wealth, like make it true, make it important for you instead of just, not. And hopefully in this episode I'm going to explain you guys the 12 reasons why salt should not be considered a health food, and hopefully you'll reduce your consumption of salt in your diet because it's not a health food, and let's not kid ourselves. So at the end of this episode I'll also give you guys 8 tips so you guys could reduce the amount of sodium you eat. Now the first thing I want to do is I want to define what is salt. So in general, salt is like what's on that table and you shake it, right? And that's the totally refined processed table salt that most people would agree is not a health food. The challenge arises when people get these other salts: Himalayan salt, Redmond salt, Celtic Sea Salt, Baja Gold salt, all these different designer salts, or even lava salt, red salt, pink salt. I mean, whatever it is, they get like this whole marketing message to them that like, oh yeah, you gotta eat the Himalayan pink salt because it's healthy, healthier than the standard salt. Well, check it out. Standard salt could be like mostly sodium and chloride, and that's what primarily salt composes of. It composes of sodium and chloride, which are 2 minerals, and other different kinds of salts may contain more different minerals aside from the sodium and chloride. So for example, the Himalayan pink salt is about 97% sodium chloride with 3% other minerals. The Redmond minerals, once again, that's 97% sodium and chloride with 3% other minerals. You might be thinking, John, I do the Celtic Sea Salt, man. That's the healthiest of them all. The Celtic Sea Salt is 84% sodium chloride, and the rest is other minerals. I think, like 16%. But even a better salt than that would be the Baja Gold salt, and that's 71% sodium and chloride and 29% other minerals. One of the reasons for the benefits of salt is because of these other trace minerals that we really need, and I'm not going to disagree with that. We do need to get trace minerals, but I think it's maybe not the best way to get it from the salt. So anyways, what I want to do next is actually get into the 12 reasons why I consider salt not a health food. So number one reason why I don't believe salt is a health food is because for most of human history, human beings and the predecessors to human beings have never salted their food. Furthermore, animals in nature, for the most part, don't salt their food either. Yeah, you could find a salt block here and there, and you can make exceptions, and animals will find a salt block and lick it and stuff. But for the most part, animals don't add salt to their food. All animals, as well as us, before modern man and inventing machinery to mine salt and harvest salt and all these things, we ate a salt-free diet. Our bodies have become accustomed to this because that's how most of history we've evolved. We're salt-conserving machines. We will hold on to the salt, and so it gets recycled in our body. So you really don't need that much. So with so many things in modern day life, we're doing things counter to how we evolved and how we lived, and we would have definitely never had the salt in the past. Reason number 2 why salt is not a health food is because it imbalances your sodium-potassium balance as it does with most Americans. We need to have a balance of 2 minerals, sodium and potassium, in our bodies. And when we have the right balance of sodium and potassium, we have sodium-potassium pumps in every cell of our body, which there's a ton of them, a trillion, a gazillion, I don't even know how many cells are in the body. But for each of these cells to move fluid in and out of the cell, this sodium-potassium pump needs to be functioning optimally. And to be optimal, it needs to have the right ratio of sodium to potassium. So the proper ratio to sodium-potassium may be between 1 sodium to 3 potassium. Unfortunately, most Americans' sodium to potassium ratio are like 1 part sodium to like 0.7 potassium. So this means that every cell in their body is not going to work as efficiently as it could because it doesn't have the right ratio. This is very important, and it's probably most important to have the right ratio. And if you're eating salt, for sure, you don't want to believe what I'm saying in this video. You're not going to reduce your consumption. Minimally massively increase your consumption of the potassium-rich foods, so it's not going to throw your balance off. Because that actually is even more critical, in my opinion, than just actually sticking with under a certain amount of milligrams of sodium a day. But yeah, this sodium-potassium pump, if you don't have the right ratios, it could wreak havoc on your body. Reason number 3, salt is not a health food because it damages your arteries. Within just 30 minutes of having a high salt meal, your artery function can be impaired. And over a lifetime, this can really mess you up. When your arteries are not working properly and the function is impaired, they're not able to transport the blood where they should need to be. You could get, problems with blood circulation. You could also have problems with high blood pressure and other heart disease related situations. Reason number 4, salt is not a health food is because salt will cripple the effects of antioxidants in your body, right? Antioxidants are what help us to stay young and help us to stay healthy, right? And when you eat too much salt, it cripples the antioxidants from working, which then can increase inflammation and other situations in your body. So I don't know about you, but I want my antioxidants to be able to quelch all those free radicals so I don't have all that free radical damage, so I could stay younger for longer. Reason number 5, salt is not a health food is because it has been shown to be implicated with cancers and other diseases, specifically in this case, colon cancer, right? So I don't want you guys to get colon cancer because you're eating too much salt. So reason number 6, salt is not a health food is because it can cause weight gain. This is readily apparent if you go to a restaurant like I have in the past where I eat out at and it has more salt than what I'm used to. I'll wake up the next day and my face will be puffy or you'll be bloated. And this is because you're retaining more water. So you could be just walking around all like puffed out, man, because you're eating way too much salt. You could easily lose some of your weight by reducing the amount of salt so that your body doesn't have to hold on to all this extra water, because if you had too much salt, it would imbalance you. So your body is basically balancing out the excess sodium by holding on to excess water. I want to release all that extra water. I want the water to actually run through me and do its job to, do detox and all these things, not hold on to it for dear life, literally. I mean, this is one of the things that, like in the olden days, Japanese maybe would commit suicide by salt. I mean, there's a recent study, published scientific report on a lady who drank a whole bottle of soy sauce and it overloaded her system, and the reason of her losing her life was because of excess sodium. So excess sodium can definitely be big problems, causing weight gain and even the loss of life. Reason number 7, salt should not be considered a health food is because it leads to dehydration. Straight up. Your body requires more water when you include salt. And dehydration can be a challenge implicated with many different diseases in the body. So for that reason, I encourage you guys to eat water-rich foods, right? Fruits and vegetables are the most water-rich foods on the entire planet. Coconut water, actually, that's probably the most hydrating in the whole world. But eat water-rich foods and steer away from foods that dehydrate you, especially things like salt and processed foods with salt and cooked foods that have all the water cooked out. Reason number 8, salt is not a health food is because it can hamper your kidney function. Your kidneys are responsible for flushing out and cleaning your blood and a whole bunch of other things. And when you're having too much salt, you're basically overloading your kidneys. And I don't ever want to get a kidney transplant and have my kidneys fail because I was eating excess sodium. That may or may not happen. But I want to give my kidneys, as much energy as they can to devote to other important functions that they're doing besides just getting rid of all the excess salt in my body. Reason number 9 why salt should not be considered a health food, and this is one that's like there's new emerging research coming out, and many people don't know about this, but salt intake and excess salt intake can hamper and actually change your microbiome. And it's been shown that we are actually more bacteria than us, and on a high salt diet you're going to create a different environment in your intestines for your soil microbiome, and certain microbes will live in a higher salt condition and certain ones won't. And so you're going to change your microbiome. So if you negatively impact your microbiome, you may not have the special bacteria in our guts that make you feel good or that can help you lose weight, right? Yes, there's actually bacteria proven that if you have these bacteria in your guts, you're more prone to being at a healthy weight than being obese. So I don't want to negatively impact my microbiome, because emerging research is still coming out, and the microbiome is actually super critical to not only foster our microbiome, but to even make a better home for your microbiome. Reason number 10 why salt should not be considered a health food is because it can negatively impact your immune system. And this is especially true of people that have autoimmune diseases. I myself was diagnosed with complement immune deficiency, which is basically an autoimmune situation. If you have things like lupus, chronic fatigue syndrome, asthma, allergies, eczema, these things are all known as autoimmune conditions in the body. And by eating excess salt, you can exacerbate and or worsen these conditions. Reason number 11 why salt should not be considered a health food is because it can reduce blood flow to your brain. Because it messes up your arteries, right? Your blood flow to your brain, which is probably one of the most important organs in your body aside from your heart. It can reduce the blood flow, especially if you're eating high volumes of salt for too long a period of time. This may cause things like memory loss, dementia, and even worse, stroke. I don't know, is stroke worse than dementia? I guess it depends. But all these situations could be alleviated by simply reducing the salt consumption and or ensuring your sodium-potassium balance is proper. So reason number 12 why salt should not be considered a health food is because of its insignificant amount of trace minerals that come along with the sodium and chloride. In the case of Himalayan pink salt and Redmond salt that many of you guys may be using, it's 97% sodium chloride with 3% other minerals. And a lot of places try to pump up oh yeah, the salt, it's so good because it has these trace minerals, and we need trace minerals. Yes, I'm going to agree that we definitely need trace minerals, and trace minerals are a major deficiency in the modern day diet, but the salt is not the thing to get it from, in my opinion. If you're saying, John, I take the Celtic Sea Salt, man, that has more trace minerals than the others, that would be true actually. So the Celtic Sea Salt maybe contains about 16% other minerals, which is definitely getting better. But the salt that I use on rare occasion is the Baja Gold salt, and actually that one has 29% other minerals, and the 71% is the sodium chloride. So that's even better, but even then, I do not believe that salt should be the way we're going to get our trace minerals. Number one, depending on the salt, it may have a different spectrum of trace minerals, and I want to get the largest spectrum as possible. And in general, the sea salts will have a wider spectrum than the mine salts based on my research. So the Baja Gold, also known as Seasons 90 sea salt, has up to 90 different trace minerals in there, which is good, but the problem with all salts is that the trace minerals are not in the right form that are easily absorbed by us. They're in a rock-like form, and we cannot digest rocks unless you're one of those creatures on one of those, science fiction TV shows. We can't digest rocks, and the minerals are in the wrong form. They don't have the right charge to them, and so that we're not as efficient at uptaking these once it goes through our whole digestion process. The way to make them more bioavailable is actually to get them through the plants. If you feed sea salt in small quantities or something like a rock dust powder to your vegetables, the plants, more specifically the plant roots and the microbes in the plant root zone, actually break down those trace minerals from an inorganic form and turn them into an organic form, take them into the plant cell walls, and they change the charge on the mineral. And once the charge is changed, then we can uptake them into us much better. So that's truly a better way to get your trace minerals, is from the plants. Now, whether that's from the land plants or the sea plants, also known as seaweed, that's what I would recommend to you guys. So now that you guys learned that salt should not be considered a health food, I want to talk about something else that's very important. It's about the sodium, We need sodium in our diets for that sodium-potassium pump that I talked about earlier, right? So the whole thing is this: salt and sodium is not good, bad, right, wrong. It's like a gradient, I would say sodium in excess is definitely bad. Sodium in insufficient quantities is also bad. We need to get that sweet spot, right? When you hit that home run, right? If you hit the ball in the right part of the bat, man, it's going to go over the fence. But if you hit it too close, it's going to foul out. If you don't hit it the right part, you may get, just hit it to the infield and get caught and be out, right? We want to hit that sweet spot for sodium. And so what is a sweet spot? Well, it depends who you ask. Unfortunately, most Americans are getting multitude times more than the sweet spot for sodium in their diets on a daily and regular basis. And this is one of the main challenges that's tanking or screwing up the health of Americans and even people in countries around the world that are modernized because of all this salt. So my goal every day is to get under 1,500 milligrams of sodium a day. I'd like to actually keep it around 1,200. 1,500 is like my maximum number. I like to keep it around 1,200 milligrams of sodium a day. And if we just eat standard fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, and all the things that you might normally eat on a whole foods, plant-based diet, you might get, depending on what you're eating, if you're paying attention or not, anywhere from 500 to 1,000. If you eat a more restrictive diet and eat only bananas and only dates and maybe a head of lettuce once in a while, you may become deficient in sodium because you're not eating sodium-rich foods such as celery and Swiss chard and these kinds of things. So I don't want to say we should avoid all salt. What I will say is we want to get the proper amount of salt, or particularly sodium, in our diets to remain healthy. I have had friends that shunned all salt because they thought it was really bad, and then they had challenges because of not having enough sodium. So I don't want you guys to become deficient, and that can be a challenge, but more often than deficiency, there's excess, right? There's just massive excess in our culture. And sodium is one of the great excesses that needs to be kicked in the butt and just kicked out of the bar if you're still drinking. So now I want to get into sharing with you guys my 8 ways for kicking the salt habit, getting the salt out of your diet, and kicking the sodium from salt to the curb, right? Number 1 way, super important, super critical. You want to drastically reduce, like almost all, or eliminate completely the processed foods, right? I don't care what kind of processed foods, if it's a vegan cheeseburger made out of soy, or if it's, processed meats and hot dogs, right? If it's canned soup, right? Anything in a can, packaged, bottle, jar, right? All these processed foods, cereals, breads, bagels, on whatever. If it tastes good to you, it's probably got salt in it, right? If it's a processed food, and you need to get rid of it, kick it to the curb, right? Because this alone is accounting for most of the nation's excess salt consumption is the processed foods, whether that's an animal food or even a vegan food in a packaged bottle or jar, right? Kick it to the curb. You got to get rid of those processed foods. I mean, not only just for their salt content, but for all the other things that's wrong with processed foods. Once you start processing foods, right, they start losing massive amounts of nutrition, and now you're eating basically a lot of empty calories in most cases. The thing I want to say is that, why do manufacturers add salt to foods, right? Well, here's the thing, right? They add salt to foods to give the product shelf life. So it can sit on the shelf for eons, like McDonald's hamburger could just look perfect after 10 years, right? When they add enough salt to it, that inhibits microbial growth so that nothing's going to want to live on it, right? And once again, going back to one of our reasons for not eating salt, it can definitely mess up your microbiome in your body. And we are more bacteria than human. So don't do it. Number 2 for reducing salt or sodium in your life is to start preparing your foods at home. Virtually every meal I eat when I'm home, because I rarely ever go out to eat, because number 1, I'm cheap as heck, and number 2, it's just not healthy and I don't feel good after eating it. And number 3, I got a garden in my backyard, man, and I love the food that I eat. But yeah, start preparing your foods at home, right? And I don't mean like taking the, frozen TV dinner out and then putting that in the microwave and hitting start, right? That's not preparing your foods fresh at home. I want you guys to make things from scratch, like the olden days. You guys might have to learn how to cook or uncook in my situation. And it's really not that hard. I have lots of videos and sharing how to make a good salad dressing, how to make a good soup. You can just throw some stuff through the juicer and juice it, or make a green smoothie. Or if you don't want to even learn how to cook, you guys don't have to. Just pick up the vegetables and the fruits, hopefully out of the garden, and just eat them. That's all it takes. I mean, for breakfast today, I had persimmons. What did? I washed them and I just cut them and ate them. I probably didn't have to wash them and I probably didn't have to cut them up. I could have just ate them, right? It's really not that hard. We're used to so many different processed foods and eating. I need to eat pizza for lunch. Why don't you just have some bananas or some apples, or even better, some blueberries? Get some organic blueberries at Costco. They're one of the best deals right now. But yeah, so we want to learn to prepare and create our own foods, from scratch at home, or just eat real foods. Third tip for reducing salt and sodium in your diet is to go on a 21-day salt fast. Yes, I said it, 21-day salt fast. I don't mean a water fast. I mean, you could do that too if you go to a supervised clinic, and once you go on a nice 21-day water fast, you're definitely not going to want to eat as much salt, because, our body becomes sensitized to salt. If you eat salt each and every day, you expect that much salt each and every day. But if you, abstain, not abstain from things you do in the bedroom, but abstain from the salt for just 21 days and abstain from processed foods that have salt in it, so now you drastically reduce your sodium consumption, your body gets used to that lower baseline now. So then when you go back and eat something super salty, you're like, oh my God, that's too salty. It tastes nasty. It doesn't taste good. And this is a challenge that I have, since I have a lower sodium, or higher sodium sensitivity, because I eat low salt. When I go to some restaurants, it's like, oh my God, that stuff's too salty for me. And we've all had that when somebody just putting on way too much salt. So I want you guys to lower that baseline by doing a 21-day salt fast, and not adding salt to things, and not getting processed foods with salt, and eating more whole plant-based foods which have natural occurring sodium in them, so it's not going to jack up your sodium levels too much, which may cause some of the health challenges that I talked about earlier. So tip number 4 for reducing your sodium consumption is eat whole plant foods. And if you're having a hankering for something salty, right, eat something like celery, or even better yet, the Swiss chard stems. Those guys are super high in sodium, but aside from having the sodium in there, they have other trace minerals, vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, right? If you're eating too much salt, that means you're not going to be eating something else. And I want to include, the majority of my diet is fresh fruits and vegetables, and that's what I would hope for you guys as well. Now, if you want to even concentrate the sodium content of Swiss chard stalks and celery, you can take it to the next level and chop them up into little small bits and then dehydrate them. That way now you're removing the water, which then will concentrate the minerals, including the sodium and all the other minerals in the celery or Swiss chard, to make it even stronger. So then you could use dehydrated celery and Swiss chard, grind it up and sprinkle that on your food if you want to add some salt flavor. But in addition, you're going to get many other beneficial, phytonutrients, phytochemicals, as well as vitamins and minerals. So tip number 5 for reducing your sodium will work whether you're trying to reduce your sodium or not, but it's basically increase your uptake of potassium in your diet. This can be easily done by eating certain foods such as spinach and other leafy greens. Things like dates have lots of potassium. Even raisins have lots of potassium. That's because they've been dehydrated. Or people would like to say bananas. Bananas really aren't that high in potassium, but hey, you could eat those too. But yeah, I want you guys to, not necessarily worry about your overall sodium consumption, which is definitely important, but also be concerned with your overall sodium-potassium balance, as I talked about a little bit earlier. It's very important to have our sodium-potassium balance proper, and even if you're going to still eat high amounts of salt despite this video, at least triple the amount of potassium foods. It's going to be, more challenging to do that if you're eating high sodium. But, on a natural plant-based diet, eating whole plant foods, we will naturally get maybe 3 to 1 potassium to sodium, just by eating foods alone. So it's really not that hard to do that, and just eat more potassium-rich foods to offset, your sodium-potassium balance so that you're in the right range instead of most Americans that are not. Tip number 6 for reducing your sodium is, instead of using the salt, use other flavoring agents in the creation of your foods, right? I like to use things like garlic and onion sometimes, things like oregano, and actually Costco, they have this no salt seasoning that's actually organic, and actually I like to put that on stuff so that I don't add the salt. Another thing that I find that's really good is things like hot peppers. I put cayenne peppers and one hot pepper in like a dressing. I don't put any salt in there, and man, it just lights up my mouth and it adds flavor depth so that actually you don't actually miss the salt. Also, of course, all the plant foods have sodium in there. And here's the other thing, like the hot peppers I'm eating are out of my garden. In my garden, I'm adding things like the Seasons 90, or the version for the agriculture, which is called C90, which is the trace minerals into my garden, so my plants could absorb those minerals. Also things like the rock dust, so my plants could absorb all those minerals. And when you're growing high quality food that has a wide spectrum of trace minerals, number one, the Brix is going to be higher. But number two, the foods are going to taste better for you, and they're going to satisfy you, unlike just, produce that you buy from the store, even if it is organic. So for that reason, I do encourage you guys also to grow your own food and eat as much as your own homegrown food as you can, because it's just going to satisfy you more and actually give you more nutrition if you're using the right practices to grow it. So be sure to check my other YouTube channel, Growing Your Greens, if you want to learn how to grow your own high quality food at home. So the 7th way for reducing sodium in your diet is simply eat more sea vegetables, right? Sea vegetables are my go-to food when I have a salt craving, because you may be having a salt craving, you may think you need salt, but maybe your body's really craving trace minerals and other minerals. We need minerals to function, and unfortunately in today's food system, if you're just even buying conventional, even organic food from the grocery store, organic and conventional growers are not usually concerned about adding a wide spectrum of trace minerals in the soil, because it just doesn't pay them money, unfortunately. So you could get these if you guys grow your own food at home, but if you're not going to do that like I do for a good portion of my diet, the other way to get trace minerals to quelch that salt hunger that you guys might be feeling is to eat sea vegetables. Yes, sea vegetables grown in the ocean, they may contain some sodium. Some friends I have actually like to wash out their sea vegetables to decrease some of the sodium content in there. But as much as they have the sodium content, they also have many other different minerals in there. 90 minerals, up to 90 minerals or more, depending on the specific sea vegetable. And I just don't eat kelp, or I just don't eat wakame, or I just don't eat dulse. I take a sea vegetable supplement that I've actually put together with over a dozen different seaweeds that actually I consume in small quantities to basically make my food taste better, quelch that salt hunger that I have, because now I'm filling it with trace minerals, but more importantly because seaweed is a whole food besides just the minerals, which it actually also is like a plant in the case that it makes the minerals more available for us by changing the polarity charge on the minerals, and other seaweed phytochemicals, which there's new emerging research on some of these phytochemicals, and they're actually quite amazing. So yes, include more seaweed in your diet for sure, and a nice wide spectrum to especially get your things like iodine that may be deficient in your diet. The thing about the seaweed that I want to mention is that most of them have a favorable potassium to sodium balance, which means they generally have more potassium than the sodium just from the get-go. So yeah, I love the sea vegetables, and be sure to click that subscribe button right down below, because in an upcoming episode, I'm actually going to detail and document and show you guys how I make my specific seaweed powder with over a dozen different seaweeds, and I probably have some extra available for you guys if you guys want to get it as well. So my last tip for reducing the amount of salt or sodium in your diet is to, instead of eating salt and sprinkling salt on your foods or adding salt to recipes, because man, so many even raw food recipes, vegan recipes, they're always adding salt, and like salt should not be like the dominant flavor in the food you're making, right? It should be the food, right? And if you had good taste in food, you wouldn't need to add salt to it. And if you're gonna want to add salt to it, add some sea vegetables to it. And yes, definitely some sea vegetables could taste stronger and make things taste fishy than not. Some other ones don't. But here's the thing, instead of salting up your food, you want to eat things that have salt contained within them, but that are also have other benefits and other properties. So I'm going to explain some of the ones that I like to use personally. So number one, I like to use the low salt miso. Miso is a traditional fermented food, could be made out of soybeans like many of them are, or even out of chickpeas, chickpea miso that I like to use. But I like to get a low salt version because they could actually have quite a lot of sodium in there. So instead of adding like just half a teaspoon of salt or something which adds lots of milligrams of sodium, I could just add 1 tablespoon of the low salt miso, and that'll give me about 440 milligrams of sodium. And if I have like 1 teaspoon of miso a day mixed in with my salad dressing and make it taste good, and then I eat basically no salt all other times of the day, I'm going to end up reaching my target of no more than 1,500 milligrams a day. Another thing I might use, which is actually more rare because I don't see maybe as much of a health benefit from this item, but sometimes in recipes or whatever it calls for this, I'll use the coconut aminos. But with that, just 1 tablespoon will give you 390 milligrams of sodium, and not as much health benefit as from the fermented soy, which is actually beans, which I think more raw foodists should be eating. Some beans, because many raw foodists tend to leave those guys out, and beans are definitely a health food. Another food I like to eat instead of actually just adding salt with other benefits are things like sauerkrauts. Of course, you can make sauerkrauts without any added salt, and I do have videos on how to do that. Maybe I'll post a link down below if I remember. But most sauerkrauts that you would buy or that you would make do have some added salt, and when I am adding salt, when I make sauerkrauts and other fermented vegetables to ensure I get a good ferment, because it can be more challenging if you're not using salt, I like to use the Baja Gold Salt that I talked about earlier. And this Baja Gold Salt, once again, has the smallest amount of sodium chloride and the largest amount of the other trace minerals available. And so on the sauerkrauts and other kimchis and things you guys might get, depending on what brand you get and how much sodium is in there, but basically a quarter cup is about 330 milligrams of sodium based on my calculations. So I could add, a little bit of chickpea miso and some sauerkraut into my blended soup or into my blended salad dressing at night, and then I'll add, nice salty flavor, but I'll also get the benefits of the other phytochemicals and phytonutrients and vitamins and minerals in the sauerkraut, in the miso, and also the benefits of better microbiome in the sauerkraut and in the miso. These are fermented foods, so they have bacteria in there that may help to make me healthier as well. Now, a few other foods that I like to add sometimes that may have some salt added to the food, but I'm not eating the salt, is something like olives. So I like to get some naturally cured olives that may be cured in salt, that may be cured in oil without salt. But most often they use a salt brine. And then, so for those olives, what I'll do is I'll get those olives home. I'll take them out of the brine that they come in, and then I'll just put them in distilled water in the fridge and just let them kind of soak in the distilled water in the fridge. That'll leach out some more of the salt. But when I still eat the olives, I'll still get a salty flavor to the olives, but it's not going to have as much salt as it would have before, which actually could be quite a lot. So I use those sparingly. Now, another food I've been experimenting with recently, and I want to encourage all you guys to include more of a diversity of foods in your diet, is capers. So I'll get salt-cured capers, and those guys are plenty salty, so I do encourage you guys to soak them before use to minimize the salt consumption or the salt on them. But capers also, very antioxidant-packed food that I like to add to different soups and salads, and even just sprinkle on salads sometimes. But yeah, they are amazing food, and they're another way I could get, salt indirectly in my diet. Of course, you're going to have your own things that you like to add that have salty flavors. I would encourage you guys to ensure the things that you add to your foods that have salty flavors have some other kind of, health benefit besides just the sodium content, right? So yeah, that's pretty much today's episode. In my opinion, salt is not a health food. We shouldn't be eating it. Definitely shouldn't be eating it in excess. We need to get a required amount of sodium And just even, eating a half a teaspoon of salt, that could put you over the top depending on what else you're eating. If you're eating just a half a teaspoon of salt and you're eating other processed foods, you're definitely going over, the American Heart Association recommended 1,500 milligrams of sodium a day. So I want to encourage you guys, after watching this episode, you guys learn why you guys shouldn't be eating the salt, the potential health consequences you could get, and also I've shared with you guys some of my ways to reduce the sodium intake. And whether you guys want to do this is up to you. Whether you guys want to just still believe what you believe about this doctor telling you salt's good because you like the taste, that's up to you guys. I just want to put this out there for my loved ones, my family, my friends, anybody that wants to listen to me. They can just hear my opinions based on my research and what I do to minimize my salt consumption, but while still making food taste good. Because if you get rid of all salt, you can live a very blasé and life that's not so fun. So I want to get enough salt, but definitely not too much. So by adding just a little bit and also lowering your salt tolerances, once you reset your system by going on a 21-day salt fast, you guys can do it. So yeah, that's what I hope for all you guys, everybody that watch this. Hope you guys reduce your salt intake so that you guys can get healthier, because that's why I got into making these videos, because this is the journey that I've been on and I'm just simply sharing it with you guys. So yeah, anyways, if you guys enjoyed this episode on the salt, on the sodium, and you learned a lot from it, hey, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. That'll ensure that I make more videos about this topic as well as other topics in the future. Also, be sure to share this video with somebody that just keeps dashing their food with salt and putting too much salt on there, because it's definitely probably most people are eating it in excess, and they're not eating too little. And hopefully this will help them out. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below to be notified of my new and upcoming episodes I have coming out about every 5 to 7 days. You never know what kind of health topic I'll be talking about, or how my videos can help you guys out. And also be sure to check my past episodes. My past episodes are a wealth of knowledge, over 450 videos on this YouTube channel dedicated to teaching guys how to eat a healthy diet based around the fresh fruits and the fresh vegetables, which are the best foods on the entire planet. So with that, my name is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. We'll see you next time. And until then, remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're always the best.